Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. I haven't talked too much about the US Open this year. It takes a lot of time to just sit and discuss every round and do predictions, and there are people that are better at doing this stuff than me. But I'm going to try for the semifinals to talk a bit about my predictions and also the rackets of the semifinalists, both on the men's and the women's side. So stay tuned if you're curious about this stuff. Please subscribe and check out tennisnerd.net. Okay, we start with the men's because they start first. Jannik Sinner, Jack Draper. This is an interesting match because Jack Draper has lost a set the whole tournament. Sinner has his doping allegations that's kind of resolved, but maybe not in most people's minds. So this could be weighing on him as well. Jack has won their only meeting in Queens a few years ago before Sinner became Sinner winner chicken dinner. So now obviously Sinner is a huge favorite. If you look at the bookies, it's like 5 times your money or more on Jack Draper. Pretty good punt if you're into that stuff. We have lots of content about that on tennisnerd.net as well. I still feel like Sinner will win in 4 sets, so 3-1 to Sinner. But before we get into that, we can talk about the rackets. Starting with Sinner, this information is already on tennisnerd.net, of course, and that's for every player that I talk about in this video. As he uses an older head speed MP, this touch generation, a little bit thinner beam, a little bit more control, bit more lower launch angle with that version. I remember testing that some years back. It's called TGT 301.4 for you mega nerds. And it's solid stick, not too dissimilar from speeds that came after. He adds some weight at 3 and 9. You can even see the weight added there, probably some weight under the bumper as well, to get it up to a 340 swing weight. Strung swing weight is how heavy the racket is when you swing it. So pretty beefy swing weight, but the specs overall are very light with 325 gram strung, around 33.4 centimeter balance. So not a very heavy racket, and you will see this with the other players as well. No one here is using like a super heavy racket by any means, so you don't need to play on the highest level. And he strings it with head hawk at a high tension, 61 pounds or 28 kilos. Obviously, depending on conditions, he might change that, but that's what he's been using and for quite a while as well. So that's Jannik Sinner, world number 1, the favorite to win the tournament now, I would say. Still, Jack Draper coming in with huge confidence, having beaten him before, has a chance in this match. Draper, on the other hand, is playing with more of a rare model than the Speed MP. It's a Dunlop, and it's called a CV 3.0 F Tour. What is up with these racket names? And that's a 97 square inch racket, so a little bit more control oriented, semi-dense 1619 pattern. Pretty high stiffness on this model. And in this case, I don't really know his actual racket specs, so if you do, please comment below. I'm also unaware of the string setup, so I saw his racket when I went to the Boss Open earlier this year. Couldn't really say too much about it, but it was definitely not the Dunlop FX500 that he's endorsing, which is also a good racket, but these pros, they don't want to change rackets every time a new model comes out because then their game will go to crap. He's endorsing the FX500 series. We have Poprin, for example, using the FX500 Tour, so it's obviously something good about these FX rackets, but he's using an older one, Jack. So let me know in the comments who you think will win. I will say Sinner 3-1. Alright, next semifinal, All-American one, good for American tennis, good for tennis marketing in the US. We have Taylor Fritz versus Frances Tiafoe. This has a really lopsided head-to-head. Taylor has won 6-1 head-to-head matches. Tiafoe's win came in 2016. This is going to be a one-sided affair. It's very hard to look away from these kind of heavy head-to-heads, and I believe that this is Fritz match to win. Of course, Tiafoe has been in these situations before, but still, delivery. Fritz racket, another light one. I've seen this one up close as well. They've even sold one on eBay, 299 grams unstrung, the one I've seen. Swing weight below 330 strung. Uses head hawk, but has gut in the crosses, so VS touch gut. This is becoming more and more popular among the pros to use gut in the crosses to kind of soften the feel, add a bit more power, and also lower the launch angle. So you're seeing that with the hybrid guts. A lot of them go in the crosses because they don't want to take away too much of that polyester sensation, but add a little bit of softness, a bit of power. So it makes sense. TGT 260.3 is the Pro Stock code of this Head IG Radical MP. So he endorses the Radical MP. I actually did a review of the 1821, which is the pattern he's using just before this video, so you can check that out. And that's the current model, a little bit firmer. This one is definitely more flexible. The IG series, super popular among pros and also club level players. Like the IG was really excellent rackets. Many tennis nerds still lust after these kind of really soft feeling old head rackets. If we get to Tiafoe, he's endorsing the Jannik's Percept 97, but he's using an older version. Back some years, it used to be called the V-Core Pro, and he uses the Dual G. Back then it had 1620 string pattern, but he used to opt out of stringing that last cross, so he had a 1619 pattern on his racket instead. The specs are from Impacting Tennis. He adds some lead tape to this racket, of course, customized as all pros pretty much. Jannik's Polytorque Pro is a string choice. As you might have seen in videos I've done before about pro player string tensions, he uses quite low, works with his kind of feel-based game, like 44 pounds, and he can really control it. I mean, obviously has great touch and feel, Tiafoe. Specs, nothing really crazy there. 330 grams unstrung, 32 centimeter balance. You add overgrip, you add strings, you have 335 grams, balance closer to 32.67 centimeters with an overgrip, and the swing weight around 330. So another 330-ish swing weight. Some of them are below, like Alcaraz, and some are a little bit above. But we don't see any like 350, 360 swing weights among these guys. There are still players like Djokovic that use high swing weights, but overall, their rackets are becoming lighter to swing, and they swing them faster. So those were the men's semifinals and their rackets. So in my opinion, there will be a final between Sinner and Fritz. And that will be an interesting one for the American audience. They will go nuts for Fritz there, so could be a fascinating contest. But first of all, women's, we have Emma Navarro, the kind of sensation in this tournament. We know how strong her potential is, but might not have seen her go all the way to semifinals. Now playing my favorite to win this tournament before the tournament, and I think many others as well. I wasn't really believing in Iga in New York. But Aryna Sabalenka destroying the opposition as usual, and most likely also winning against Emma. That's my prediction at least, and most bookies, as you can see in the odds. Navarro's racket is interesting. Most players use the latest cosmetic. That's how the racket companies try to sell rackets. They paint them as the latest model. People think they play with that, and they sell more rackets. Otherwise, they would have to stop having old rackets, and the marketing wouldn't really work as well. But she's actually using the V-Core 2021 cosmetic, the V-Core 98. I went back in the image archives and saw images of her playing with the SV model, which is very popular among pros because it's super direct and quite crisp, a bit more controlled, because that has a 1620 pattern. But if you study her racket closely, it's a 1619 pattern. So in this case, I really believe she actually uses the 2021, but I might be wrong. So if you have more information, please correct me. I don't know the specs. I do know that she's using Jannik's Polytorque Rev strings, and this time orange. So they have different colorways of these strings, obviously, but that's her setup. Probably the 2021 V-Core. Not sure why you would stay with a cosmetic that's kind of outdated. I'm sure Jannik's, they don't really like it. Sometimes it's superstition, could be some other logistical things, but most likely not. So if you have any background info on why she's still using this cosmetic, let me know in the comments. Sabalenka, I've talked about her racket before. All this info is on tennisnerd.net. As I said, she's using a Blade 98 1820, which is a rare string pattern on the WTA Tour. But the power level of Sabalenka's ground strokes are also rare on the WTA Tour. And 1820 Blade, her specs I got from Tan Tennis, another YouTuber reviewer, so check his channel out. It's a strung weight 324 grams, 32.7 centimeter balance, and a swing weight of 326 strung. So quite friendly racket specs for most recreational players. She's using a string hybrid of Poly, which is becoming more popular as well. Some kind of hybrids. People are trying all kinds of hybrids. My friends at Tourline, they have the Omakase program, which I helped a bit with, where you can actually get your custom Poly hybrid. So check that out. I'll put a link in the description. She is using Laxalon Power mains and Laxalon Ace cross. Not sure the tension. Would say semi-high with her, but considering how hard she hits. Alright, so that was that semi-final. We go to the other semi-final. We have Jessica Pegula, who beat Swiatek straight sets, against Karolina Muchova, who hits the ball very hard, has a nice flair to her game. I really like watching her. Pegula is the favorite. She did win their only encounter in Cincinnati in August, and is obviously playing great tennis. But it should be a tough one, this. I would still think that Pegula wins in 3 thanks to the audience support playing at home. Pegula is playing Ionix ESO 98. As usually, it's tough with the generations. Obviously, it's painted to look like the latest one, but it could be from 2016-17, that generation after the AI that Naomi Osaka used. A little bit firmer in layup, that one. She did switch from the Aero Pro drive that she used back then, so maybe she wanted a bit more power that racket gives, that like kind of lime green ESO. So probably that one. I would guess that she's using all the power. That's the way it looks, and they don't have any information on these type of pro player gear pages, which is usually a sign that she's using something else, because Yonex, they would want to obviously have the player completely sponsored by Yonex with the apparel, shoes, racket and strings, as in the case with Stan the Man, Hubert Hurkacz and Elena Rybakina, where they use the whole range from Yonex. But in this case, it's Adidas apparel and shoes, and a Yonex racket and Luxlon strings. Not ideal for Yonex, but that's how it is. Karolina Muchova is another speed user. We started with the Sinner speed. This is another model of speed. Same mold as the current one, but no auxetic technology. Just a little bit more raw in sensation with that kind of graphene 360. Very popular mold on the tour. You can get it in 1820 or 1619 if you're a pro. And she's using 1619. TGT 339, I think .2 for the 1619, but not 100% sure. And no idea which string she's using. I mean, considering how many strings there are on the market, especially black polyesters, it's crazy. It's very hard to keep up. I'm trying my best. I'm testing all kinds of strings from large manufacturers, small manufacturers, and it makes your head spin, literally, and the ball spin. No idea. So if you know, let me know in the comments. It's tougher to find the specs for WTA players than the ATP guys, so we're trying our best. Tennisnerd.net for more of that stuff. So those are the predictions, and those are the racket specs and rackets they use. Let me know if you have any extra information to share in the comments. If you have racket advice questions, please put them in the racket advice post. I will put it in the description, because that helps me collect everything, and then I can make a video replying to the questions, and then everybody gets help instead of just one guy writing a DM. Alright, that's all for today. Have a nice day now, and don't forget to play some tennis.